Hello, we are here at KPMG today to talk about the tax reform that is being discussed in the Congress and in the news. The tax reform has mainly three pillars, and we are going to explore each one of these pillars individually. My name is Marcos Vinicius, I'm a tax partner here at KPMG, and I have my colleagues Roberto Haddad and Marcos Matsunaga, both tax partners here at KPMG as well. Roberto, can you talk a little bit about the corporate income tax impacts of this reform?
Yeah, Brazil is following the worldwide tendency of reduction of its corporate income tax, mainly after the reforms that took place in India, Argentina, France, and United States. And we are considering reducing the rate from 34% to something around 20%. So it's a pretty important reduction in our corporate income tax rate, and that would bring a lot of impacts in profitable, but also in the companies that have NOLs, because a lot of these companies, they have booked in their balance sheets an asset coming from the income tax arising from the NOLs, and they will need to reduce that, and that would bring an important impact in the balance sheets. This is one side. The other side is after decades of non-taxation of the dividends, we are now coming for a new scenario where we may have a taxation of dividends, maybe something 25%, something around. And that's why the tax treaties that Brazil signed would become very important, because we have in those treaties rates of 10%, 15%, which should be less than the rate that would apply to non-tax treaties countries. So that's why an important exercise of structuring would be needed, especially when you have the US, UK, and other countries that have no tax treaties with Brazil.
Very good. And Marcos, can you talk about a little bit the IBS or the taxes on consumption?
Sure.
What the reform is proposing?
Sure. Well, as you know, Brazil has a very complex tax system in regard to the consumption taxes. We have 5 different taxes levied by the states, the cities, and the federal union. So we have the PIS, COFINS, IPI, ISS, and ICMS. The whole idea of this reform is to unify those 5 taxes into one single tax, a kind of VAT tax, a national VAT levied by the federal union, but with the revenues split between the states and the cities as well. So the main purpose of this reform is not only unify and reduce the complexity of the Brazilian tax system, but also increase the capacity of making tax revenues, because those taxes are kind of old taxes and they're not prepared for the new economy, for the digital economy. So the tax basis of the IBS, or this national VAT, will be larger than the current ones.
Very good. And finally, last but not least, is the pillar that talks about reducing the tax burden on payroll or formal employment. The government is also proposing to reduce the social security on payroll to 0, so there will be no taxation of social security on payroll. But it intends to offset the loss of revenues by not having the social security on payroll by the creation of a new tax on payments, which would be levied on any movement of cash, either from banks or even cash in species. So at the end of the day, any transaction would be subject to these taxes. There is a lot of discussions about the rate. Recently, the head of the tax authorities is saying that this rate should be lower than 1%, but as it is levied on any transaction, it may reduce on an important tax burden for the companies. With that, a very brief summary of the main points of the proposed tax reform in Brazil. We thank you for your view, and we see you on our next talk show.